How does a lone samurai driven by hate and vengeance go from this to this?
You think you can take me down twice?
Netflix's Blue Eye Samurai follows a sword-wielding avenger tearing through Edo period Japan, a world consumed by dirty politics, fierce prejudice, and endless bloodshed. Episode 1 begins in 1633, with Japan having closed its borders to the outside world. In the years that followed, most people of Japan have never seen a white person, and the children of mixed Japanese and European heritage are viewed as monsters. The story opens at a small noodle shop where a lone samurai wearing a straw hat and tinted glasses stops for a meal. The food is served by Ringo, the noodle shop owner's cheerful son, who was born without hands. Despite his disability, Ringo works hard and refuses to let it define him. Before long, trouble arrives at the shop. A loud, abusive flesh trader, aka human trafficker, named Hachiman, is dining with two women he recently purchased. And when Ringo angers him by accidentally spilling food on the man, the straw hat-wearing samurai calmly steps in. During the confrontation, the samurai, Mizu, notices that Hachiman carries a European-made pistol and demands to know where he got it. After all, it's illegal to have it. When he refuses to answer, the samurai swiftly cuts off several of his fingers with a knife. Faced with no other choice, Hachiman admits that the gun came from a wealthy merchant named Heiji Shindo. As the samurai walks away, Hachiman realizes that the badass warrior has a pair of piercing blue eyes beneath the glasses.
You dead-eyed, half-blooded demon bastard! You look like an unreal!
Looks like somebody wants to lose more fingers. Amazed by the display of skill, Ringo immediately decides he wants to become the samurai's apprentice. The samurai immediately refuses, then ties the persistent and stalking young man to a tree to slow him down and continues alone. Eventually, Mizu reaches a rundown temple and quietly prays. The samurai asks for guidance in hunting down a group of white men, and prays that someone else, called the Sword Father, remains safe. The episode then flashes back to Mizu's childhood. As a child, Mizu was constantly bullied because of their unusual blue eyes, which were hidden behind crudely made glasses. The other children mocked the poor kid, claiming Mizu's mother killed herself because the father was a white devil, aka a foreigner. Jeez, where are these kids' parents? Clearly, that comment triggered Mizu, and moments later, the kid tries to fight the bully. Just as one bully prepares to smash a rock over the kid's head, a brilliant blue meteor crashes nearby. While everyone else runs away in fear, Mizu notices an elderly blind blacksmith struggling to pull the strange metal from the crash site. Together, the old man and Mizu manage to load the meteorite onto his cart. After sharing a man at the old man's home, the blacksmith tells Mizu to leave. Instead, the kid secretly stays the night to avoid the storm outside. The following morning, it's revealed that the blind man knew that Mizu had never left. From then on, the Mizu begins helping around the forge, slowly earning the old craftsman's trust. This old man is the Sword Father I mentioned earlier, and his real name is Master Eiji. He's a pretty legendary swordsmith. Back in the present, Mizu arrives outside Kyoto and joins a line of travelers waiting to enter the city. Lacking official travel papers, the only way inside is to quietly bribe the guards with a few coins. Once inside Kyoto, the samurai searches for the training school called Shindo Dojo. On the way, the samurai witnesses the procession of Princess Akemi, catching only a brief glimpse of the young noblewoman inside her palanquin. You'd think she's of royal blood, but she's actually the daughter of Lord Daichi, who heads the Tokunobu clan. Elsewhere, Akemi meets with her wealthy father, who intends to marry her off to another powerful lord for political gain. Her longtime advisor, Seki, argues that she should marry someone she truly wants instead. Thinking quickly, Akemi persuades her father to consider Taigen, the gifted star student of the Shinjo Dojo, claiming she wishes to remain home. Oh, right. She somehow forgot to mention that this gifted star student is her secret boyfriend. Afterwards, she secretly meets Taigen and happily tells him the news. Meanwhile, Mizu arrives at the Shindo Dojo, claiming to carry an important message for the dojo master. The students refuse to let the samurai inside, insisting that the master doesn't meet with messengers. Rather than leaving, the samurai demands to be treated as a guest first before being sent away. Another flashback reveals more of the samurai's upbringing with the Sword Father. The blind swordsmith teaches the child that the strongest blades are never perfectly pure. True strength comes from balancing hard and soft steel, combining both purity and impurity. Under his guidance, the child learns the art of forging and eventually crafts a kitchen knife, Years later, although the sword father still hasn't succeeded in forging the mysterious meteorite into a sword, he discovers his apprentice secretly practicing swordsmanship at night. A young Mizu finally confesses the truth. Being of mixed heritage, there is only one goal on the kid's mind. You see, there were 4 white men in Japan when Mizu was born. One of them SA'd Mizu's mom, which is how Mizu was born. And so, our aspiring samurai wants to become strong enough to kill those white men. Instead of rejecting the kid, Master Eiji simply repeats his lesson about steel. Strength comes from embracing both sides of one's nature.
What have I taught you about steel?
Strongest sword is a blend of steel, soft and hard.
Pure and impure.
The old man quietly allows nighttime training, and the aspiring blue-eyed swordsman begins secretly observing countless swordmasters, learning their techniques without ever formally joining a school. Back in the present, the confrontation at the Shinjo dojo escalates as Mizu refuses to leave. Armed with nothing but a wooden practice sword, Mizu effortlessly defeats every student while mocking the Shinjo style as predictable and easy to counter. Unable to stop the intruder, the dojo summons its strongest fighter, Taigen. Leaving the celebration of his engagement to Princess Akemi, Taigen accepts the challenge. As the duel begins, Mizu recognizes him as one of the childhood bullies from years ago, and Taigen also recognizes Mizu after knocking the samurai's glasses off. The battle appears evenly matched at first. Then, Mizu suddenly removes heavy metal weights strapped to both arms and legs. Freed from the extra burden, Mizu's speed increases dramatically, overwhelming Taigen within seconds. Rather than killing him, the samurai slices off his top knot, leaving him humiliated. As a samurai, losing your top knot is the most embarrassing event of a lifetime. And let me tell ya, samurais are not barbers. They're not gonna make it look better afterwards. The commotion finally brings out the dojo master, who reveals that his brother, Heiji Shindo, is hiding inside a heavily guarded fortress on Tanabe Island. After Mizu departs, the dojo master secretly visits his brother and apologizes for revealing his location. From the shadows, an unseen figure orders the brothers to send the deadly assassins known as the Four Fangs after Mizu. Later, our ocean-eyed samurai stops at a waterfall to clean up and treat the wound they received during the Taigen duel. As Mizu is bathing, they hear someone approaching. The samurai instantly draws their sword and leaps from the water completely naked, ready to fight. Instead, Mizu only finds Ringo standing there in complete shock. Here, this stalking apprentice wannabe discovers the truth. The legendary blue-eyed swordsman is actually a legendary blue-eyed swordswoman.
You are. That'll do it. I didn't notice.
Episode 2 opens with the aftermath of the fight at the noodle shop where Ringo used to work. As Ringo's father scrubs blood from the floor, the 4 masked assassins, known as the Four Fangs, arrive looking for the mysterious blue-eyed samurai. Ringo's pops reluctantly tells them everything he knows about the samurai before they set off in pursuit. Meanwhile, Ringo refuses to give up on becoming the samurai's apprentice. He follows Mizu down the road, constantly insisting that he can be useful despite her repeated refusals. Their journey hits a snag when they reach a military checkpoint. Just when it seems Mizu will be turned away, Ringo comes to the rescue. Since his father's noodle shop has an official travel permit, he carries a pass that allows 2 people through the checkpoint. With no better option, Mizu accepts his help. Afterward, Ringo once again asks to become her apprentice. This time, instead of refusing outright, she finally agrees to let him accompany her. Elsewhere, Taigen is recovering from the humiliating defeat he suffered at the Shindo dojo. Princess Akemi tries to comfort him, insisting that what happened wasn't a fair duel, but a surprise attack. Her words reignite his pride, and he vows to hunt down the mysterious samurai and challenge him properly to reclaim his honor, even if it means postponing the wedding. At this point, Taigen still believes Mizu is a man. Meanwhile, Mizu and Ringo continue traveling toward the coast, hoping to reach Tanabe Island, where Heiji Shindo is hiding. Along the way, Mizu reveals an important detail. Shindo isn't her true target. She's after the white man that Shindo is protecting. When they finally reach the port town of Mihonoseki, they're disappointed to discover that no boats are leaving because the town is celebrating the annual Hadaka Matsuri festival. They'll have to wait until the following day before they can set sail. As they settle in for the night, Mizu ties a small bell around Ringo's ankle so she'll always hear him coming instead of being startled by his constant sneaking around. Unfortunately, they're far from the only people on the road. Taigen continues following Mizu's trail, determined to find her first, while the Four Fangs are also closing in, leaving a bloody path behind them as they eliminate anyone who gets in their way. On Tanabe Island, Heiji Shindo waits impatiently for a signal confirming that the Four Fangs have completed their mission. He speaks with a mysterious red-haired white man, whose conversation reveals something far more significant. Although he is only permitted to leave the island for a single month each year, the man intends to change that rule by eventually meeting with the Shogun himself.
I hate that I have time for painting. If I have time to paint, something is wrong.
More on this guy later. While waiting for the next boat, Mizu spends her time training alone in the forest before cooling off in the ocean. Another flashback sheds more light on her past with the Sword Father. One day, a man claiming to be a humble bookbinder visits the old blacksmith's forge, requesting a sword to avenge his father's murder at the hands of a drunken Ronin. The Sword Father agrees to forge one for him. While the sword is being forged, Mizu practices with the customer, but he easily defeats her, mocking her as a weak half-breed. Deeply affected by the humiliation, she begins binding her chest so that she can better disguise herself as a man. Oh, poor Mizu. She helps forge the customer's sword, but the blade unexpectedly cracks during the process because, according to Eiji, her soul was not at rest while forging it. Even so, the Sword Father presents it to the customer. Furious over the flaw, the man strikes Mizu and almost does it again, but the Sword Father intervenes. Feeling the roughness of the man's hands, the blind blacksmith immediately realizes that the customer isn't a bookbinder at all. In that moment, the stranger proudly reveals himself to be the infamous assassin, blood-soaked Chiaki, boasting about the many people he's killed. He talks about his intention of keeping Master Eiji's broken sword to boost his own reputation. And then, the guy takes his leave. Back in the present, Taigen secretly watches Mizu training in the woods. He witnesses her slice clean through an enormous tree with a single strike. When he attempts to copy the feat himself and fails, his frustration only grows. After all, in his mind, Mizu is a cheat who is below him. Elsewhere, Princess Akemi receives devastating news. Her father introduces representatives from Shogun Ito's younger son, who has selected her as his future bride. Shogun Ito is from the royal Ito clan, and he controls all of Japan. And now, Akemi may soon become his daughter-in-law. He's even instructed to blacken her teeth because it's the prince's preferred beauty standard. Feeling desperate, Akemi begs her father to let her marry Taigen instead, but he refuses now the warrior has been disgraced in battle. Akemi is expected to leave for Edo in only 5 days. Refusing to accept her fate, Akemi later attempts to run away while pretending to go shopping for silks. Her royal guardian Seki immediately realizes what she's planning. Though he initially tries to convince her otherwise, he ultimately chooses to help her escape instead.
If we're running away, let's at least do it more.
Back at the festival, Ringo happily explores the crowded streets and learns a local tradition with regards to the festival. A priestess will now throw a sacred wooden stick into the sea, and whoever catches it is said to receive divine blessings. Just as the festival reaches its peak and the ceremonial drums begin to thunder, the four fangs finally catch up with Mizu. The assassins corner her on the edge of a cliff overlooking the ocean. With nowhere left to run, Mizu calmly steps backward and throws herself off the cliff. The mercenaries rush to the edge, only to discover that she landed safely on a narrow rock ledge below. One after another, they leap down after her, turning the cliffside into a deadly battlefield. Despite fighting on the precarious mountainside, Mizu dispatches the assassins one by one. During the third battle, she's knocked off the rocks and crashes all the way down to the shoreline below. Her final opponent is revealed to be none other than blood-soaked Chiaki. The two engage in a brutal duel, and for a moment, Mizu gains the upper hand. But then she notices Taigen secretly watching from the cliffs. That brief distraction allows Chiaki to wound her. As the assassin moves in for the killing blow from behind, Mizu reacts instantly. She hurls her sword backward without even looking, driving it through Chiaki and killing him. At the same time, the priestess in the town tosses the sacred stick into the sea, sending hundreds of naked festival participants diving into the water. Oh, wow. In the middle of all the chaos, Ringo miraculously catches the sacred stick with his mouth. But Mizu's ordeal isn't over yet. The wounded swordswoman barely has any time to recover before Taigen finally steps out of hiding. Still obsessed with restoring his honor, he challenges her to the duel he's been seeking. Before the duel can begin, however, Mizu's injuries finally catch up with her and she falls unconscious. The next episode opens with a mysterious flashback to Mizu's infancy. Two men are arguing over whether Mizu should be killed. Their disagreement quickly turns violent, ending with one man dead. The survivor hands the infant to a third person and orders them to flee. None of the adults' faces are shown, leaving Mizu's true origins shrouded in mystery. Back in the present, Taigen stands over the unconscious Mizu with his sword drawn. Although this is the perfect chance to restore his honor by killing her, he can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he lowers his blade. Moments later, Ringo arrives and immediately shoves Taigen away before carrying Mizu to safety. Surprisingly, it's Taigen who tells him about a nearby shrine where she can recover. As Mizu lies unconscious, she dreams about her childhood. She remembers being hidden away inside a small house by a woman who she considers her mother. Well, the woman Mizu believes is her mother. The woman constantly warned her to never leave the house because dangerous men would come looking for her if they discovered where she was. Elsewhere, the red-haired foreigner that Mizu has been looking for, Abijah Fowler, learns that the four Fangs have all been killed. Now furious, he lashes out at Heiji Shindo, ordering him to make absolutely certain that the mysterious samurai dies before his carefully planned ambitions are ruined. At the shrine, Ringo cleans and stitches Mizu's wounds while giving her medicine. Once she regains consciousness, she finds Taigen calmly writing a contract for their long-awaited rematch. The two agree to settle everything in a proper duel 3 days later. Before they can continue their journey, however, a towering giant of a man named Okiyama arrives carrying an invitation from Heiji Shindo himself. Shindo wishes to meet Mizu over a cup of tea. Taigen immediately recognizes it as an obvious trap and urges her not to go. Mizu ignores his warning, and unwilling to let someone else kill his rival before their duel, Taigen reluctantly decides to come along. Ringo naturally tags along as well. Meanwhile, Princess Akemi continues her escape with Seki. Along the road, a group of bandits ambush them, stealing nearly everything they own, including Akemi's money pouch. Left with no other option, they accept a ride from a passing cart driver. Elsewhere, as Mizu's group travels towards Shindo's meeting place, Taigen opens up about his childhood, revealing that his father frequently beat him while he was growing up. Ish, sounds rough. That night, the group camps together, but a casual remark from Taigen sparks another fierce argument between him and Mizu. Taigen recalls how, as children, he and the other village kids terrified each other with stories about the strange mixed-race kid, aka Mizu, living alone in a hut deep in the woods. Then one day, the hut simply vanished. His words trigger painful memories for Mizu. Brief flashes reveal scenes of fire and the traumatic decision of her childhood home as she furiously attacks Taigen. Although she defeats him once again, the violent fight tears open the stitches covering her recent wounds.
I'll get my needle and thread.
The following morning, Taigen jokingly tells Ringo that once he finally defeats Mizu, the young apprentice should come work for him instead. Ringo refuses without hesitation. He explains that he doesn't follow Mizu because she's his master. He follows her because she's destined for greatness, and he wants to stay close to that greatness. Hey, you tell him, Ringo. Eventually, the group reaches a narrow mountain passage where Okiyama instructs Mizu to continue alone. She steps inside, with Taigen cautiously following behind, despite remaining convinced it's all a trap. To his surprise, they emerge into a hidden clearing where Shindo is calmly awaiting with tea already prepared. Elsewhere, Akemi's situation grows even worse. She wakes up to discover that the cart driver stole the little money they had before abandoning them in the wrong direction entirely. As despair begins to overwhelm her, Seki reveals that he secretly kept enough money to return home all along. He explains that women have very few choices in society, and that's why he arranged for the shogun's proposal in the first place. Yep, he was the one who arranged her marriage to the shogun's son. Feeling utterly betrayed, Akemi realizes Seki never truly believed she could choose her own future. Feeling furious, she walks away on her own. Not long after, Seki finds herself inside a tavern pretending to be a courtesan who sells herself. There, Akemi charms a merchant named Goro into helping her find a brothel. I'm using the term merchant loosely here because this guy is an actual human trafficker. Feeling impressed by Akemi's beauty, Goro allows her to ride with him on horseback while Seki watches them disappear with growing concern. Of course, Akemi's real goal is to find Taigen. Back at the mountain hideout, tea with Heiji Shindo begins surprisingly peaceful. Mizu explains that she isn't interested in killing him. Her real target is the foreign man he serves. Shindo finally reveals the man's identity as Abijah Fowler. Mizu then explains her true mission. 3 white men were living illegally in Japan when she was born, and she intends to kill all 3 of them. Shindo corrects her count, reminding her that there were actually 4 white men, not 3. Mizu calmly replies that she's already eliminated 1. Ooh, that's cold. At first, Shindo tries to bribe Mizu with money and power, but Mizu immediately refuses. Seeing that bribery won't work, Shindo changes tactics. He admits that after 20 years of working under Fowler, he has grown to hate him as well. If Mizu truly wants to kill Fowler, he'll secretly help her infiltrate his supposedly impenetrable fortress. His plan is simple. She'll hide inside a large sake barrel that will also be delivered directly into the castle. However, there's a catch. If she refuses this deal, Shindo reveals that 500 archers are already hidden throughout the surrounding mountains, waiting for his signal to strike. Rather than submit, Mizu draws her sword and slices off Shindo's hand. As he falls back in agony, the signaling ribbon slips from his fingers, unintentionally ordering the hidden archers to attack. Suddenly, the sky fills with arrows. Mizu and Taigen sprint to the narrow mountain pass, desperately avoiding the relentless barrage while taking several hits along the way. Meanwhile, Okayama heads after Ringo, but Ringo has already prepared for this all along. Earlier, he secretly poisoned the man's soup, and the poison suddenly takes effect, causing the giant to start vomiting. Ringo seizes the opportunity and pushes him straight off the cliff. Back in the mountain pass, Taigen sees how hopeless the situation is and tells Mizu to use him as a human shield so at least she can survive. They're both running out of options when Ringo suddenly appears on horseback. The two warriors grab onto the horse as Ringo charges through the rain of arrows, carrying everyone out of danger. For the first time, Mizu openly admits that Ringo is actually useful. Yeah, not all heroes wear capes or carry samurai swords. Once they've escaped, the tension finally eases. Taigen returns Chiaki's broken sword, saying it belongs to her. As they discuss what happened, Taigen realizes that Mizu never intended to hide inside the sake barrel. Instead, she simply wanted to learn her way into Fowler's fortress. Just as Taigen begins complaining that their duel will have to wait yet again, Mizu suddenly knocks him unconscious. Elsewhere, Shindo warns Fowler that the person they are dealing with isn't human, but a demon who will inevitably come for him. Later, Taigen wakes up alone. Beside him lies Chiaki's broken sword, along with a letter promising that once her mission is complete, she'll return to give him the honorable duel he deserves. His frustration doesn't last long. Before he can react, someone grabs him from behind. The episode ends inside Fowler's fortress, where the giant escorts rolls of large sake barrels into the castle. From inside comes the muffled sound of Taigen struggling. Fowler wants to know everything about the mysterious swordsman hunting him, and Shindo confidently assures him that Taigen has all the answers. That young man is about to feel a whole world of pain. Episode 4 begins with a brief flash forward showing Akemi preparing a drink for Mizu before the story jumps back in time. In a busy harbor town, Mizu and Ringo stumble upon a crowd gathered for a duel. The fight is over almost as soon as it begins, with one swordsman cutting down the other in a single, devastating strike. With her sights still set on killing Abijah Fowler, Mizu heads to a well-known brothel to meet its owner, Madame Kaji. After waiting for some time, she's finally granted an audience. Thinking that Mizu is an undecided male customer, Kaji explains that the brothel caters to every kind of desire, serving powerful men who come seeking vulnerability and escape from their daily routine. She speaks of intimacy as both an art and a form of power. While walking through the establishment, Mizu notices the many hidden sides of the people inside, including a respected swordsman openly sharing affection with both a woman and a man. The moment reminds her that people often hide their true selves beneath carefully crafted masks. Eventually, Mizu reveals the real reason for her visit. She knows that women from Kaji's brothel have been sent into Fowler's heavily guarded castle before, and she wants Kaji's help getting inside. Kaji agrees, but only if Mizu does something for her first. You see, there's a man known as Boss Hamata, the ruthless owner of the local gambling house and the leader of an armed group known as the Thousand Claw Army. This Hamata dude extorts half the local brothel's earnings and kills anyone who refuses to pay. And so, Madame Kaji wants Mizu to kill someone. But instead of Hamata, Kaji asks Mizu to kill Kinuyo, her own protege. What? It is revealed that Kinuyo is a deaf and mute young woman whom Kaji rescued from an abusive father years ago. She raised her like a daughter and promised not to let any man touch her. But now Hamata has claimed her and will force her to sleep with men.
But Boss Hamata likes to break delicate things, so he took her.
Kaji now believes death would be a kinder fate than what awaits Kinuyo. Though the request weighs heavily on Mizu, she reluctantly accepts. Around this time, Akemi has finally tracked down the Madame Kaji's brothel while searching for Taigen. She'd caught a glimpse of Mizu during the street duel from earlier in the episode. At the same time, her father discovers she has run away and immediately sends men across the city to find her. When Akemi arrives at Kaji's brothel, Kaji quickly realizes she's a noblewoman. After passing a test, Akemi earns a place among the Nightjar's courtesans. Soon after, Akemi encounters Mizu. Mizu immediately recognizes who she is, and to keep her from interfering, Mizu has Akemi tied up while assigning Ringo to watch over her. That night, Mizu quietly enters Kinuyu's room. Rather than making her suffer, she gently embraces the young woman before ending her life swiftly. Damn, that is sad. She carefully stages the scene to make it appear as though Kinuyu's assistant attacked the girl first, forcing her to fight back in self-defense. As Mizu escapes, she runs into a little boy and orders him to alert the guards about a fight inside Hamata's gambling house. With the painful task complete, Kaji honors her side of the bargain and gives Mizu the information she needs to infiltrate Fowler's castle. But before Mizu can leave, disaster strikes. Boss Hamata arrives outside the brothel with the Thousand Claw Army, and the little boy from earlier steps up and points his finger at Mizu. Looks like Hamata's men are preparing to burn the entire brothel to the ground. Episode 5 opens with a shadow puppet performance telling the tale of the Ronin and the bride. As the play unfolds, it mirrors the events of the episode, blending Mizu's bloody battle in the present with the painful memories of her past. Back at Madame Kaji's brothel, Mizu draws her sword and quickly organizes everyone, telling Ringo to escort the women into the basement while she stays behind to face Boss Hamata's men alone. Watching her get ready, Kaji bitterly tells her that she has doomed everyone. When the attackers storm the brothel, Mizu uses the darkness to her advantage, silently eliminating them one by one. As she fights, the story flashes back to her life years earlier. We learn more about the woman Mizu calls her mother, who has fallen deep into an opium addiction. Mizu begs her to stop using it, but she brushes off her concerns. Desperate for money, the woman even tries to sell Mizu before coming up with another solution. She arranges for Mizu to marry a man named Mikio, an aging former samurai who lives alone in a secluded home. Although it's a marriage of convenience, Mikio treats Mizu with kindness and never forces himself on her. Over time, the two slowly grow closer. Their bond deepens while caring for the horses on Mikio's property, especially a stubborn stallion named Kai. After Kai throws Mikio and leaves him bruised, Mizu succeeds in taming the wild horse herself. Impressed by her skill, Mikio gives Kai to her as a gift. That act of trust brings them even closer. Mizu kisses him, and the two finally become husband and wife in every sense, sharing a genuine moment of love rather than obligation. Feeling safe for the first time in her life, Mizu opens up about her past. She tells Mikio about her sword training and her determination to hunt down the men responsible for her existence. But the moment he witnesses her incredible fighting ability, everything changes. Instead of seeing the woman he loves, Mikio sees someone frightening. Someone capable of terrifying violence. Now, I'll have you know, it's not her fault that she's better than you, sir. The warmth between them disappears almost instantly. Soon afterward, Mikio leaves, taking all the horses with him, including Kai. When bounty hunters arrive looking to collect the reward on Mizu's head, he returns only to abandon her instead of helping. Back in the present, Mizu continues fighting despite being wounded. She's exhausted and struggling to breathe, and one of Hamata's men nearly strangles her to death. At the last possible moment, Akemi intervenes and saves her, giving Mizu the chance to recover. Our blue-eyed samurai immediately throws herself back into the fight with renewed determination. Using the front door as a choke point, she forces the attackers to come at her in small groups instead of all at once. Eventually, the sheer number of enemies causes the door to collapse, burying her beneath the wreckage. Even that is not enough to stop her. Mizu rises from the debris and cuts down the remaining soldiers in a brutal counterattack, leaving Hamata's entire force lying dead around the brothel. The battle mirrors Mizu's flashback, where she also massacres the bounty hunters sent after her. With his men defeated in the present, Boss Hamata is left completely helpless. Rather than finishing him herself, Mizu leaves him to face the women of Madame Kaji's brothel, who finally get their chance to take revenge on the man who terrorized them for so long. The flashback reaches its tragic conclusion as Mikio returns home and confronts Mizu's mother, accusing her of selling out Mizu. Mizu's mom denies it and says it was Mikio who sold her out. The two begin fighting, and Mikio fatally stabs her. Then, Mizu throws a knife into Mikio, killing him as well. Back in the present, a battered Mizu quietly walks away from the brothel, barely able to stand. She watches as the Shogun's guards arrive and take Akemi away without trying to stop them. Ringo can't believe Mizu would simply let Akemi be taken after everything they've been through. Disappointed by what he sees as a heartless decision by a supposed samurai, he turns his back on Mizu. Mizu reminds him that she never claimed to be a samurai, and so they go their separate ways. The episode ends by returning to the shadow puppet play. As the tale of the Ronin and the bride reaches its conclusion, Akemi reveals to the royal audience that she once met the real Onryo, a woman whose heart has been consumed entirely by darkness. As she speaks, she opens her mouth, revealing that her teeth has been dyed black, symbolizing the new path her life had taken. And yes, she's about to be married to the Shogun's son. Episode 6 begins with Mizu finally putting her plan to infiltrate Fowler's castle into motion. Armed with the map Madame Keiji gave her, she knows her destination is the 9th floor. Carefully counting her steps, she makes her way through the castle's hidden passages until she reaches a locked door deep in the basement, surrounded by skeletons of women and young children. After picking the lock, Mizu accidentally triggers a trap that floods the passage. She has no choice but to hold her breath and swim through the underwater tunnel to reach the other side. By the time she emerges, she's already exhausted. Getting to Fowler will be far more difficult than she had expected. At the top of the castle, Fowler and Shindo are having a meeting with two of Shogun Ito's officials. They are conspiring to kill the Shogun and his family using Fowler's guns. They're soon alerted about Mizu's presence in the castle. Shindo decides to watch Mizu's progress through the castle as though it's nothing more than a form of entertainment. Mizu is forced to navigate one deadly trap after another. She narrowly survives crushing walls, hidden mechanisms, and even has a metal spike driven straight through her foot. Aha! Ow. Eventually, Mizu reaches a small room where she finally has a chance to catch her breath. She cleans the wound in her foot with ice water and takes a quick drink before moving on. The next challenge is even more dangerous. The room is filled with hallucinogenic flowers that begin clouding her mind almost immediately. She manages to dull their effects by repeatedly splashing herself with freezing water, but not before stumbling into another chamber filled with deranged prisoners. Under the influence of the flowers, they appear to her as terrifying, bloodthirsty monsters. While fighting through the hallucinations, Mizu discovers Taigen imprisoned inside the castle. He's alive, though barely conscious after enduring brutal torture. Refusing to leave him behind, she hoists him over her shoulder and continues forward. The duo eventually enters another chamber where Mizu is confronted by Shindo's massive bodyguard, Okayama. A savage battle erupts, pushing Mizu to her limits. Though badly injured, she manages to defeat the enormous warrior and escapes while carrying Taigen. She gradually crawls to the top floor of the castle with Taigen on her back and crashes through a nearby window. After killing the two officials of the Shogun, Mizu still hasn't seen her target. Unbeknownst to her, Fowler is already waiting inside the room with a firearm. Without hesitation, he shoots directly through Mizu's sword, shattering the blade into pieces and injuring her shoulder. Fowler then turns his gun towards Taigen, forcing Mizu into a desperate fight for survival. Outmatched and beaten down, Mizu struggles to stay on her feet. Taigen, despite his own injuries, throws himself into the fight to protect her. At the same time, Mizu finally accepts Ringo as her apprentice, deciding that she will one day teach him what it truly means to be a samurai. Is this really the right time to talk about Ringo? Anyway, realizing that they have no chance of defeating Fowler in their current condition, Mizu makes the only decision left. She grabs Taigen and leaps from the castle into the freezing waters below. The plunge seems certain to kill them both, but just as hope begins to fade, a mysterious figure appears and rescues them from the icy river. Oh, is that who I think it is? Episode 7 begins with the reveal that Ringo was the one who saved Mizu and Taigen. He eventually brings them to the only person he knows can help, Master Eiji, aka Swordfather. While Mizu and Taigen recover in secret, Fowler leaves his fortress and sets his sights on Edo, where the next phase of his plan is about to begin. On the journey, Fowler and Shindo stop at Madame Kaji's brothel to indulge themselves. During their visit, Fowler reveals the true scale of his ambitions. He isn't simply trying to survive in Japan. He intends to overthrow the entire shogunate. Using guns secretly smuggled into the country aboard fishing boats, he plans to arm a private army and seize power by force. Unknown to Fowler, however, Shindo has decided to betray him. Secretly working with the Shogun's officials, he hopes to intercept the shipments of the weapons before Fowler can retrieve them. These two monsters really deserve each other. Meanwhile, Akemi is now officially preparing for her marriage to the Shogun's son. Still unhappy with the arrangement, she watches a bird fly free after releasing it from its cage. Moments later, her fiancé the prince casually shoots it out of the sky. Sheesh. It's kinda like a metaphor that Akemi's own dreams of freedom have been cut down just as easily. The other women in the palace mock her situation, joking about the prince's cold personality and the life of imprisonment awaiting her. Surprisingly, the one person who offers genuine advice is Madame Kaji. Having traveled to the capital with the women from her establishment, Kaji bumps into Akemi in the streets and they have a brief conversation. She reminds Akemi that cruel, powerful men often hide deep insecurities. Instead of fighting them directly, she tells Akemi to become the strength they secretly depend on. Solid advice, to be honest. Back at Master Eiji's workshop, Mizu finally regains consciousness. She discovers that Taigen also survived their escape, while Ringo remains distant, still disappointed by her decision to abandon Akemi. Mizu herself is both physically and emotionally broken. Her legendary sword has been destroyed, and she begins questioning everything she has sacrificed for revenge. Master Eiji gently reminds her of the lessons he taught her growing up, encouraging her not to lose herself because of one defeat. As Mizu slowly recovers, she spars with Taigen, and during their training, Taigen unexpectedly becomes flustered after finding himself getting attracted to Mizu, awkwardly dismissing it by claiming that he simply misses Akemi.
Taigen? Must be missing Akemi.
I somehow doubt that. Anyway, Mizu tells Taigen the truth about Akemi's situation. She reveals that Akemi is now in Edo, preparing to marry the prince, Takayoshi Ito. Mizu also warns him about Fowler's plan to attack Edo, encouraging him not to go because it would almost certainly be suicide. Daigen refuses to stand by while innocent people are slaughtered. He condemns Mizu for allowing revenge to consume her, arguing that she no longer fights for honor, but only for herself. Furious, he throws down his sword and leaves, determined to reach Edo and warn the Shogun before it's too late. Watching him leave forces Mizu to confront her own choices, accepting that she must move forward rather than cling to the past. She makes up with Ringo and asks him to help her perform a ritual that symbolizes letting go of her broken blade and embracing who she truly is. The story then returns to Akemi. During dinner, her mother-in-law cruelly serves her the very bird she had watched the prince kill earlier that day. Later that night, however, Takayashi sends Akemi 2 living birds as an apology. At first, Akemi thinks she's being mocked, so she confronts him. Then she discovers that Takayashi has a severe stutter, explaining why he rarely speaks and often seems distant. Realizing he isn't the monster she imagined, she remembers Kaji's advice and chooses compassion over resentment. The two finally begin to understand each other, and their relationship is consummated. Elsewhere, Shindo receives devastating news. The search teams fail to find Fowler's weapons because they were hidden inside ordinary cargo, with guns concealed in fishing equipment, piano legs, and ammunition disguised inside wooden blocks. Worse still, everyone involved in the search has been killed. Fowler has successfully assembled both his weapons and his army, leaving no one standing in his way. The next morning, Akemi puts Kaji's lessons into practice. She dismisses the palace servants and uses a chest full of gold to buy the freedom of all the women from Kaji's brothel. Paying them far more than they expected, she hires them as her own attendants inside the castle, giving them a chance at a new life. But just as it seems Akemi is finally taking control of her future, everything falls apart. One of the women, Issei, confesses that Fowler is planning to attack during the upcoming gathering of the lords. Believing she can trust her father, Akemi rushes to warn him. Instead, she discovers the horrifying truth. Her father has been secretly working with Fowler all along. Without hesitation, he grabs Issei and throws her out of the window to silence her forever. Then he seizes Akemi, declaring that she now belongs to the royal clan whether she likes it or not, before locking her away in a dark cell as the episode comes to a close. The last episode of the season opens with a flashback to Mizu's early childhood. Believing that her mother has been killed in the house fire, Mizu tearfully apologizes for being unable to protect her and vows to avenge her death, no matter what it takes. Back in the present, Mizu and Ringo finally arrive in Edo. With Fowler's invasion about to begin, Mizu has several goals: rescue Akemi, save Taigen, and stop Fowler before he can overthrow the shogunate. She promises Ringo that she'll kill Fowler, but if she doesn't make it back, she gives him instructions on what to do next. Ringo refuses to believe she'll die, confidently insisting that she'll return. Elsewhere, Fowler pays one final visit to Prince Takayashi and his older brother, offering them a package of gold in exchange for a place among Japan's ruling elite. Bro really wants to feel like he's a part of the team. They reject his offer without hesitation, making it clear there is no longer any room for negotiation. Realizing diplomacy has failed, Fowler prepares to launch his assault. Meanwhile, Mizu finds Madame Kaji and warns her to flee Edo immediately. At the same time, Seki secretly frees Akemi from the cell where her father imprisoned her. Having finally seen Akemi's courage and determination, he chooses to stand by her instead of obeying Akemi's father. Lord Daichi is then locked in the same cell where he locked his daughter. Karma came in quick. Before they can be captured, Mizu suddenly appears and cuts down the guards going after them. She then tells Akemi and Seki to head for the sewers, where Ringo is waiting to guide them to safety. Near the sewer entrance, Ringo reunites with Taigen, who has disguised himself while trying to reach the shogun's castle. Before leaving, Seki gives Akemi a chest filled with gold, hoping it will allow her to live freely no matter what happens next. While Akemi escapes, Taigen heads back towards the castle to defend the shogun. He joins the remaining soldiers and finds himself protecting Takayoshi.
Where is your wife? I don't know.
You gotta imagine how awkward that must be, protecting the very guy who stole his girl. Yikes. Soon enough, Fowler's invasion begins. The battle is brutally one-sided. The castle's defenders fire arrows, but they stand no chance against Fowler's rifles. The invading army tears through the castle gates with overwhelming firepower. Fowler's plan is made even more effective by traitors already inside the castle. Shindo and the other conspirators open the gates from within, allowing the invading force to pour inside. The defenders are quickly overwhelmed. After most of the castle's soldiers are slaughtered, Taigen makes a final stand beside the shogun and his sons as Fowler personally enters the throne room. Without hesitation, Fowler guns the shogun down and several of his retainers. Just as Fowler prepares to execute the shogun's heirs, Mizu bursts into the room and stops him. She cuts through Fowler's soldiers while dodging a barrage of bullets, forcing Fowler to retreat deeper into the castle. Mizu immediately gives chase. Meanwhile, Taigen faces a difficult choice. Rather than following Mizu, he finds the wounded Shindo, who somehow survived the battle by playing possum. Remembering everything Shindo has done, Taigen finishes him off himself, killing him slowly and brutally. And a good riddance, I say. Deep inside the castle, Mizu confronts Fowler once again. She battles him alongside Taigen, and the fight is savage, pushing both warriors to their limits. Eventually, Taigen is badly wounded and he can barely continue. Realizing he will only die if he stays, Mizu orders him to leave and reunite with Akemi at the sewer. Now alone, Mizu corners Fowler and sets the room ablaze, hoping to trap him inside the inferno. Fowler barely escapes through another exit while muttering that Mizu is crazy. As the castle burns around them, Fowler flees towards his army. Outside the castle, Akemi and Seki race toward the sewer. Along the way, Akemi realizes that they can seal the gates, trapping Fowler's invading soldiers inside the burning castle. Despite shutting the gate, Seki ends up getting shot and killed. His final words were about his dream of seeing her rule over Japan one day. Moments later, Taigen catches up with Akemi and pleads with her to leave Edo with him. He confesses that he wants to spend his life at her side and finally find happiness together. Akemi gently refuses. After everything she has endured, she no longer has dreams of simply being happy. Instead, she wants greatness. She realizes that the destruction surrounding them also creates an opportunity to reshape her own future, and she chooses to stay behind. Oh, poor Taigen. Meanwhile, Mizu catches up to Fowler one final time. The two engage in one last brutal fight. Fowler eventually grabs Mizu by the throat and during the struggle discovers that the legendary samurai is actually a woman. Rather than being shocked, he mocks her, believing he has gained the upper hand. Suddenly, an enraged Mizu drives her knee into his face over and over until she breaks free. She finally places her blade against his throat, ready to end his life. But Fowler offers information she can't ignore. He reveals that he isn't the only white man responsible for her suffering. Two others, Skeffington and Routley, are still alive, and according to him, they are even more dangerous than he is. He also reveals a shocking truth. Mizu's real mother may still be alive. The woman who died years ago was actually her maid, who had been paid to hide Mizu from those hunting her. Before Mizu can decide whether to kill him, Fowler gives her one final clue.
I know another word you don't know. A magic word. London.
That single word changes everything. Realizing Fowler is now the only person who can lead her to the remaining men on her kill list, Mizu spares his life. In the aftermath of the battle, Ringo believes that Mizu died in the fire in Edo. So he returns to Master Eiji, who accepts him as his apprentice. Mizu, meanwhile, imprisons Fowler inside a cage aboard a ship bound for London, leaving Japan behind as her quest for revenge enters an entirely new chapter. As Edo begins rebuilding after the devastating fire, Takayoshi and his mother order the destruction of Fowler's remaining firearms, hoping to prevent another tragedy like the one they just survived. Akemi also survives and begins carving out her own place within the new political landscape. Even her father is still alive, though now powerless and under her watch, completing the dramatic reversal of their relationship as the first season comes to an end. And that's the entire story of Blue Eye Samurai. So far. I mean, season 2 can't come fast enough. In the meantime, feel free to check the link on screen and watch another one of my videos. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.